Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. I, it's so funny when Sarah says share your story. It's like, do I have a story? So I had to be reminded because I didn't even remember what I said to you, Sarah. So thank you for reiterating that because I had no idea what I had said to you. But it's accurate and it's true. I think in sharing what I want to kind of keep my eye on the time here, and you might remind me too, because I can get talking. Um, I feel like for me, Advent this year started before Advent. Sarah had mentioned in emails, and I think in an event at her house, that Advent was coming, that this was a wonderful time to open our hearts and to prepare. I think it kind of went through and kind of caught a little bit, and I heard it again. It kind of caught again, and um, and I was pretty curious because I hadn't thought about Advent since I was a kid. Really, I have not celebrated Advent. I think when our kids were little, I had an Advent wreath, but really, I look at all the Advent calendars that come out. I saw one this year for like skincare, a new skin coupon. I'm like, and that's how I have been seeing these Advent calendars. They literally are just often, most of the time, something to sell product. It has never even caught my attention, to be honest, in a way that had touched my heart. But but I was curious now, thinking about the words that you had shared so many times, Sarah, about this is 4 weeks to open our heart to make room. And of course, make room, all I can think of is joy to the world, because that's, prepare him room. But I never hear that till Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And by then, we should be celebrating the room that we already created. But I have not thought of it that way. And so for me also this year, because I have been on this journey, with this group and all its different manifestations, um, I felt like I had to, or I wanted to, or I had been actually already building. Like I think you have to almost, at least for me, prepare to prepare. And I think that I know 100% that be beloved by going through those 40 days. Um, okay, I've really only done like 37 or maybe 35. I've done most of them. But by doing that as a group and individually, that prepared me to prepare for Advent, or to prepare me for Advent, which is preparing me for Christmas. So now everything has changed. This entire fall season, which for me, because of some experiences earlier in my life that were traumatic in November, I used to kind of have a hard time in the fall, even though it all resolved and everything turned out well and everything. But I had this nagging thing throughout fall, even as we moved in, and this became a joyous fall, and became a joyous time. And as everyone asks you, oh, are you ready for Christmas? Like people in store, people say it all, are you ready for Christmas? And God, now I'm emotional. It's like, I am. No, I am not in the terms of what you're asking. Of course, I have a lot to do to prepare the actual wrapping and food and all that. But I love that I feel, as you said, that I said open, like that I'm expanding and have been over the months, and that like Christmas Day now is just pure celebration. So I'm very, very happy about that. What I haven't talked about yet, and I don't know how long I've been talking yet, but um the Advent, the day, the adventure at your house, the retreat, or I keep calling it an Advent retreat, and I don't know if those were your words or not. When I got there, I couldn't get there I was about 45 minutes late, so it was in full swing. And I walked in the door, and immediately what I felt was just a really good feeling. I mean, I can say peace. I just, everyone was doing their solo activities, but in silence, and I don't know what they were all experiencing, but the combination of what was being put into the air was just like a hug walking in there. Um, I spent the end of the what was left of that first period is broken into sort of three, I think it's three, right, Sarah, periods of time, of activities, separate activities, and we would come together. I spent the end of the first one um, out in the yard looking. There's a little platform that I could stand on, and as Sarah knows, I grew up in Park Hill. I don't go there much except to go to Sarah's house, but I hadn't looked into to her neighbor's yard is where I spent a lot of my time growing up. As it turns out, one of my very, very dear friends had a gathering at her house. Like we just hung out. That was the hangout place. So I was in touch. It put me just in this unique opportunity to be in touch with something I hadn't been in touch with for a long time, both through how I spent Advent as a youth and how I spent my youth in general. So that was just, I didn't do any of the activities with the group that I just was kind of on my own little journey. And I looked also at the ground, as you might know, some of you, it was a beautiful day. So standing out there so comfortable, just feeling the sun warming me, warming my heart. It was already feeling warm from just being there. And I realized another part of that song, Joy to the World, it says, um, let heaven and nature sing, let heaven and nature sing. And for me, standing on the ground, realizing it's like those hands that you're always holding up, Sarah, that we're being held by the ground. The ground is holding all of this. And I wanted to honor that. And I know my mind's a little heightened to it. It's going to sound like an ad or something. It's not. I literally just finished writing a novel called The Ground Beneath Our Feet. And it's about a lot of things. It's about climate change and how important where we stand is and how it roots us to our beginnings. And I was just thinking a lot about my beginnings, which is a theme or my youth, which has carried me kind of throughout the whole retreat in a way, because when we came in for I don't know which section, but I guess the third and last section of the retreat, for some reason, I can't remember what I did on the second section, but the third section, I went into the dining room where they had activities set up. I did two of them, which were, um, and I wish I'd been here earlier for more of the prayer today because uh, this idea of letting go the things that we're holding on to so fiercely. Um, Two of those exercises really helped me. They were individual exercises. I was quiet. They helped me immensely with one thing that I'll bring up in future prayer sessions for a child of mine, and I just can't let it go, and I can't stop praying about it constantly. And it really helped me to do that. And that moment with someone else sitting next to me doing their own thing, there was a strengthening of it. You're not self-conscious. You're not thinking, oh, wish I were alone to do that. You're not interacting with the other person, but your energy is together. Your prayers are together. And that was just the theme throughout that whole Advent retreat. Sarah, have I gone past 10? I'm getting close to the end. I'll just say,
You have 2 minutes. You're good.
okay, perfect. Okay. The what I did at the end then was to walk out the front door. Sarah had said, City Park's really close. There's a lake. And that was my intention as I walked out the door to go down and spend some time in nature there. But instead my feet turned to the right without my permission. And I walked several blocks. The church and school where I spent 8 years of my life is 5 blocks up the street. Hadn't been there in decades. I walked through there, just trying to get in touch with because I was a very spiritual, religious child. Um, and I looked at the church, which I was a little intimidated to walk into. And I went over and I thought, I'm just going to peek in. And I opened up the door and I didn't know what I would experience. And it was open. I was glad. And I felt very happy and peaceful. And I was so happy to know that that was my experience of God growing up. I wasn't sure until I stood in there. And I just want to leave with this one last moment. I had a very full, short Advent thing, but I mean, a lot seemed to happen in just that very little time during the retreat. I knelt down and I was praying, and I remembered, and even as I was walking in, I remembered a moment of Advent as a youth, as like a 7-year-old. I, God, I'm emotional. I was with my grandmother, and she took me in for something at night. It was candlelit, and I have flashed on that memory, not really being in touch with what it was, but I know it was Advent, and I know I was dressed warm, and it was November, and I just, it was a reminder to me that everything we do with our children and our grandchildren and the kids in our life around this, around Advent, around opening our heart, is really impactful, even when it's deep in the subconscious. And it brought all that out. So that was my opening for the day. And I'm so grateful to you and Brandon, Sarah, both for just creating the intention to create the intention. And something has to start it, and you started it. And thank you.